listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia Griffin. To master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Once you walked in a forest of splendor in which everything you did and everything you thought was aligned. It is possible at this time to begin to return to the old knowledge. Intuitive healer and manifester Julia Griffin is here to talk about this unique time in history when all sentient beings, animals, plants, trees, and the earth are intent on creating this change. The wolves awakened her to the most incredible light, which opened gifts and brought knowledge that she longs to share. You are creators, and you are born to be creators of beauty, possibility, and joy. Join Julia on a journey into a beautiful and magical world where amazing possibilities exist. Let us help open the door. The Power of Inspiration and Awakening with Julia Griffin starts right now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Julia Griffin, and you're listening to the Power of Inspiration, Awakening, and Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour, and let us help you experience a higher vibration and a new state of mind. Isn't that the coolest when it happens? And if you're not familiar with me, I actually awakened with real live wolves and lived with them for 10 years. And they taught me to read energy, plants, animals, and people. And I guess they guided my life into where it is now, and I became an intuitive coach and healer. And you can find me at onetrueself.com. I'm going to talk just for a second about the eclipse. It's in my blog post if you want to see it at onetrueself.com. But astrologically, we have an incredible aspect that came with the eclipse, which was Jupiter conjunct Uranus. Jupiter is expansion, Uranus is the new. We also had 5 planets in Aries. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So for many people, this was a door of energy coming in with the eclipse at the moment of the eclipse. If you didn't feel it, don't worry about it. It will catch up with you. I felt it as a very subtle, feminine wave of energy that was bringing healing to me and healing to the planet. And it certainly is a evolutionary boost if you want to tune into it. But don't worry if you didn't get it already, you will. Now, let me tell you about our guest today, who is just great. It's Kathryn Hudson. She's an international speaker, teacher, and lover of all things spiritual. She had an angel who appeared in the bank where she worked. We'll have more about her work today. She gave her an amethyst and a message, and her life opened up. It led her to France and to the life she leads today as an angel teacher. She listens to her heart's guidance, and she's going to help us with that and how we can listen to plants. And she has an incredible book on crystals that I hope you will read. It's Discover Your Crystal Family. I've had crystals a long time, and this is one of the most clarifying books I've ever read. So, Kathryn, I'm so happy to have you here. Why don't you begin by telling us where our listeners can find you, your website?
Oh, Julia, thanks so much for having me. I'm so happy to be with you again and in this space. So it's Kathryn, Kathryn Hudson, like the river. I grew up not far from the Hudson River in the Bronx. So it's an easy way to remember. I am findable easily on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, and my website is very simply kathrynhudson.fr because I am in France most of the time, almost all the time.
You're a light for us in Europe, so thank you for that.
Well, it's interesting. You know, I feel very tied and connected to what's happening in the States. I feel almost as if I experienced the eclipse through friends and family that were very present for it. But we didn't actually have the visual here. So it's interesting. I guess the child of the planet is probably the most appropriate. And with the crystal work, it's certainly how I feel.
Right. So I wanted to start with, tell us about Findhorn. You're an ambassador for Findhorn?
Yeah, well, we're called resource people. And I've been a resource person for Findhorn for, going on 20 years. And both for the United States and for France. And what that means is people who have deep connections with Findhorn go back out into the world and bring that energy outward. So
Right.
work as love in action, uh, uh, going quiet and listening to nature and co-creating with the plants and animals and flowers and everything that's around us, remembering that everything's alive. These are some of the principles of that place. That place on a number of occasions changed the trajectory of my life, and it's certainly there that I learned to open the doors that I had shut pretty firmly when I was back in the Bronx growing up, and things were a little bit tough. And sensitive people don't get through those times without shutting some doors. So I'm really grateful to that place that had really accompanied a lot of my earlier journey and now punctuates my connection with them is every day. I started this day singing Teze chanting with people from Findhorn and people from around the world. So it permeates every week of my life, every day almost, I would say, as I use in my own garden. And the gardens here at the Haven, it's a place that I've opened for a quiet retreat here in France, and we use the principles of Findhorn here whenever there are people that come. So yeah, my goal is to, if people have questions and they need to know even the nitty gritty, how to get there, what to do when you get there, how to travel, who to talk to, it's really to be a relay point for people who are interested in Findhorn, who have questions.
So I've
So
never been. Why don't you describe a little bit about it for us?
yeah, there's two ways that I describe Findhorn. The first is it's like a hug. So every time that I have gotten off the train, so I usually go by train, every time I have gotten off the train at the town that's located quite near the campus of Findhorn, overwhelmingly there's this feeling of coming home. And that was since the very first time I'd ever been there. Now I'm Irish, and Scottish is not far in culture from Ireland, but it wasn't that. It was something else. And so from the very first moment that the driver came to pick up all of the people who had arrived for different workshops at the train station, and there were immediate hugs, and nobody knew anybody, but it was, yeah, it was a little bit of a love fest, and not in the, yeah, I want to say not in a hippy dippy kind of way, although I think I'm pretty hippy dippy these days.
It was universal love.
But even then, I was a banker when I first showed up there. I was on vacation from the bank, and it just felt like a homecoming. It felt like there were no masks. It felt like people weren't afraid to be loving.
Hmm.
And I think I had been thirsting for that my whole life.
Yes.
And yeah, yeah. And so I immediately relaxed, and I think I had been tense since pretty much I was born. So yeah, it's a wonderful place. They're going through transition right now, so the workshops are not as often scheduled, but you can go and stay, help work out in the gardens, meet people. There's meditations and chanting and events pretty much continually, even during this revamping that's going on currently.
So tell us about the plants.
When if you don't mind, I'll give a little history on it. So Eileen
Please.
Kathryn and her husband Peter and Dorothy McLean were the three friends who decided to head up, didn't decide, who had received guidance. So these are people who listen to their inner guidance, to the listening to the doors within, opening up to the voice within. And they had gotten guidance to go north, 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 and they landed on this tip of Scotland, which is called Findhorn, the Findhorn Bay area. Findhorn, by the way, in the local language of the Gaelic is unicorn, which when I found that out, I was delighted. So they landed there. There was a caravan park, and that's where they set up shop, and with no intentions of being an international cultural and spiritual eco-village center for the world at all. But they wanted a garden. And everybody made fun of them because it's very sandy, and they said nothing's ever going to grow here, you're never going to have any success. But they were getting strong guidance that yes, 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 you will. And so they started planting on this land that everyone said nothing would grow on. And what emerged were not just growth, but these ginormous, beautiful expressions of different vegetables. And that made a huge hit, as so much so that they were interviewed on the BBC. They were interviewed from there were US television. I mean, it was a
Right.
big deal at the time. So they went up there in 1962, which year I was born. It's a long time ago. The place has been around forever, but it has evolved into a thriving community. There's more than 130 countries represented in the people that live there now. So it has attracted, as Eileen's guidance in the beginning, people from all over, people who want to work in community and in harmony with the nature spirits. So before every shift, no matter what the people are doing, whether it's working in the kitchen or the gardens or planting, they go ahead and connect with each other and connect with spirit. If they're in the gardens, they ask, okay, what should we plant where? So there's some real collaboration that's going on. And it feels very much as if the veil that separates most of us from our co-guardians, our earthly co-guardians, the nature spirits, that veil has lifted to a degree, and for many more people than has been the case outside of it. So I feel pretty fortunate to have met with some pretty magical people there and learned to connect. And it's coming in handy now as this complete city person. I've been living in the country here in France, and I have there are fruit, there's a vegetable garden, and it's all new to me because I used to visit Findhorn, but I didn't work it. I didn't there steadily in the garden. I visited. I would drop in and cry as I planted peas, but I found it touching, but didn't stay on a long-term basis. And here I am finding that the things that I learned there are invaluable as I get indications, okay, now it's time to trim that tree, and this is where, and this is how, and this is where that should be planted. No, not there. So some of the learning I'm doing is by error, which is my normal way of going about business, but some of it's also pretty magical. So I'm really, really grateful to Findhorn and that presence, and to those who have preceded and those who are still there. I feel like they are a gas station for many vehicles, including mine. So I'll go there when I feel like I've run out of the juice, and fill her up before going back into the world. And that has been the case for a long time. So
I think that
it's just a magical place.
I think you've said two things that are super important. The first thing is that the plant kingdom can tap us into the universe, and there are a lot of universal laws that are around that. And the other thing is that highly sensitive people tend to, when something hurts enough, just to say, okay, I'm not going there. I won't feel that anymore. And a whole lot of awakening is opening up. People say all the time, why can't I hear animals like you? Why can't I hear plants? I'm like, you can't just go around saying, I'm going to hear plants and animals. You have to open to it. I mean, and I gave them this example. Let's say, what was it that I have? I had a deer in the garden one night in the winter because I'd put down straw and she was sleeping in it. And immediately I could feel a presence. But then I asked, what is it? Is this something that eats meat? Is this something that eats plants? How big is it? And then immediately she bonded with me. So you just start by asking questions about what you're feeling.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, it's really that. And I find that the very people that are asking, frustrated that well, why am I not? There's a softening that has to happen around it before that can break through. And the fact that it's called Findhorn, I don't think is an accident. So in all of the mythology, we know that unicorns, whenever they're described as being approachable only by the pure of heart, and only through soft and gentle. And not through, I want that unicorn. The bad guys in the fairy tales want that unicorn. Well,
and it's so preconceived because I never thought animal voices would sound like people voices.
and isn't that the best confirmation? People say to me, well, Kath, how do I know that this message is really a message and not just me making it up? I'm like, if it's surprising, that's a clear confirmation. So if we're surprised at the sound or the timbre or the language or the whatever it is that's surprising, that can I find that it can help our sometimes stodgy, the sometimes
Mhm.
stodgy school trained, society trained brain to kind of soften and let go, soften and be curious, soften and play and
Right.
being playful. That energy is much more conducive uh, to I wanted to say breaking the walls down, but it's not that, to
Mm-mm.
allowing the veil to fall.
It's more like your heart. It's more like opening up your heart and letting it in. And I think people are reluctant to open their hearts because you don't know what kind of information you're going to get. It's just a trust.
And I think people have forgotten how to open their hearts.
I think so too.
And yeah, and so in theory, oh yes, I want to open my heart. Yes, I'll open my heart. But there's a feeling associated with it, and because feeling has in itself so often been difficult in societal earthly experience. There's a a homecoming that almost needs to happen, a gentling, almost as if we need to be gentled back to who
Yeah.
we are. Yeah.
And I think it's also opening up to our feelings and our sensations. Because, I mean, if you're just going to stream stuff and clean up the house and then go shopping, your body has not been open to sensations for hours.
That's right.
Let's
That's
just
right.
compare that to 5 minutes in the garden with your shoes off and dirt on your hands.
Yeah. And to be aware of that,
Yeah.
that okay, going to the shopping and doing the chores and going out in a car maybe, or whatever it is, the actions, the worldly actions, while necessary and important, they are on a different, I don't like to say the word frequency because it kind of delineates and I feel
Right.
like it's more of a flow. But to be conscious that okay, now I'm shifting, I'm downshifting, I'm shifting into a different gear. Okay, now I'm just going to soften. I was efficient and effective,
Right.
and now I'm going to soften and give myself more of what nourishes the truth of who I am.
And we were talking before we started the interview that you can ask every day, what does my inner self want me to do? And some days there's not anything that I want to do out of those messages, or I don't have time to do it. So I ask for one quick thing that's fun. And
Yeah.
yesterday it was gardening. So, I mean, who knows what it will be today? Maybe I'll stand on my head.
I have to thank you for that one because I am definitely going to borrow that tactic. Yes. Once it's fun, once it's playful, then that's where always the worlds meet. The worlds
Mhm.
meet harmoniously and peacefully.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to trying that once we finish.
Yeah, because it will be fun. And it's like once that happens, it gives me so much energy that I'm interested in it all again. It takes care of my inner work, which obviously I have to do a substantial amount of to do what I do. It changes it into, oh, I love this. It's so much fun.
That's yeah, it's so important. I have a book that just came out in France, and it's not out in English yet, but it's 101 spiritual practices of the angels, and but each of them playful, each of them, trying to break the thinking, break the mold of the
Mhm.
thinking that I have to do this to be spiritual. And remembering that it's our nature to be spiritual. So the more natural any kind of a practice is, whatever, if it's whistling or singing or laughing or jumping or kicking or
Yeah.
that the way we look at the action and not just the action becomes very interesting. Mm.
And I think we're still overcoming that old thing from the patriarchy of all the rituals that you had to do to get into a spiritual state that may have been great for the Piscean age, but they're not working in our age. It needs to be more spontaneous.
Mhm. Yeah, it's as if the old way is served, but
Right.
new breath, new life has to be breathed into it. I think that people still that rituals can be helpful for many,
Hmm.
but that they have to be real. That is, they can't belong to somebody else, or if we're doing a ritual that has been a tradition from hundreds of years or more, that somehow it has to become our own, that
Right.
we have to be entering into it fully, and it becomes our ritual. So the spontaneity that you're speaking of, bringing presence with a capital P into it, is indeed present. Yeah.
And I think that's one of the shifts that we're experiencing now. And I'm going to go back to very quickly about how opening the heart is soft, but it also involves the inner child, because I did so much meditation to learn to understand what the wolves were saying clearly. And I would be all ready to see them and ready to get this new knowledge I was going to write down. And they would want to play in the stream. And it was like they would just ignore me until I gave up and played with them.
Yeah. And then that was the message, isn't it?
Yeah,
You know,
because they
um,
never stop playing. That's how they're different from other animals.
and I didn't know that specificity of the wolves, but I do know that for us, that this is meant to be joyful. This experience is meant to be joyful. And the world has so forgotten it. A lot of the work that I do, and I don't even like to call it that, a lot of the exploring that I do with people that come is, we go on these quests to um, led by and looking for and meeting up with the inner child, that part of us which already knows. The playful part of us is already in that space of inner wisdom and ready for whatever is going to emerge next.
And then a
Yeah.
fun thing to do, sometimes I ask myself, if I were 5 years old, what would I do right now? And sometimes I
Ooh.
do it
Oh, I like that. I, yeah.
because I'll think,
I'll
well,
say that sometimes I act like I'm 5 years old. So I'll go into there's a bakery here, and there's a woman who hand knits animals, and the animals are dressed, and there's
Mhm.
a seal that's dressed as a swimmer, and anyway, they're just adorable, and I have a ton of them here. And she's like, "Oh, you have a lot of children?" I have no children, taking them all for me. But of course they serve. But this um, the capacity to be in to be marveling, to marvel, to be
Mhm.
in wonder, to be in awe, to look at the sky and just be astounded by it.
Yeah,
These children have the capacity to let an emotion come and then leave. Uh,
yeah.
yeah,
I thi-
that's an admirable quality of any child, to
Those are
not
the moments too that energize you, just like finding something that's fun to do that connects to your inner self.
absolutely, absolutely.
And so I think maybe joy is part of what we're talking about.
Oh, it's absolutely the case. I always describe the highest frequency, or of the highest frequency. We often say love, capital L. Not the love that we see and kind of the swapping thing that happens on Earth, but love, light, and joy as three facets of the same life energy,
The
source energy.
divine nature of the universe.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
And so, who has ever listened to birds sing in the morning and not been impacted, either because it uplifts, or because we resist and, oh, stupid birds? Ha!
Mhm.
It's a call to the truth of who we are, and it's just so uplifting is the right word, but energetically so, to recognize what's happening at the beginning
Mhm.
of the morning. Once we step outside into a garden, or once we go out, and even in a city, there's birds. Just have to listen closely, or lifting your head up to the sky, or even seeing humans starting to come out of their out of not their hovels, their apartment buildings. Ah,
It's the
um,
small miracle of dawn and dusk.
that's
All
it.
the animals, the entire world gives us energy if we open to those two windows every day of our lives. We're going to have to go to break. You've been listening to myself, Julia Griffin. I'm at onetrueself.com, onetrueself.com. I've been talking with Kathryn Hudson about opening up to the universe with plants. When we come back, we're going to talk about angels and crystals, and I'm so excited to do it. We'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm Julia Griffin at onetrueself.com, and I'm talking with Kathryn Hudson about the amazing world of angels, crystals, and plants. And you can find Kathryn at kathrynhudson.fr because she's in France. So tell us about your first crystal, Kathryn.
I will. Just a quick correction. It's Kathryn.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not
Thank
Hudson.
you.
No, everyone forgets the Y. I don't
Oh,
know
okay.
why.
I like the spelling.
So yeah, well, I had crystals before, but the one that really opened up the door for me was I was working in Manhattan as a banker. I was actually in a central branch of a big bank and across from Grand Central Station. And it was a day I was never particularly happy to be at the bank, frankly. It was a way out of the penury of the Bronx. And it was the path that I happened on. And I wasn't too happy. So I wasn't a great performer. And that day I was very hungover. I was very tired. I was not happy to be there. So I was a little grouchy. And a woman came into the bank and I saw her coming and I thought, uh-oh, that looks like work headed its way to me. So I pretended to be very busy, gave her my back, and instead of going to one of the other bankers, she waited for me. And I was a little bit nonplussed. I wasn't happy about this. But so I actually started making shoot, as if a hubbub, as if I were having trouble looking for something important. Maybe she would go away, but she didn't. She sat down at my desk to wait for me. And I thought, oh, la, la, this woman, she's got a pear on her. Excuse me, but I am from the Bronx, and that is what I thought. So I turned around and begrudgingly, but admiring that she was really self-affirming, I extended my hand and said, I'm Kathryn Hudson. Welcome to the bank. How may I help you? And the woman didn't take my hand. She said, no, I'm here to help you. And she placed in my hand an amethyst crystal, about the size of my palm. And at that time, this is like in the 90s, at that time, there weren't crystals everywhere like there are now. This is really rather a remarkable event. And I was without words. Now I had a very sharp tongue in general. And normally was rather quick with the rapier wit, but I had nothing. I looked down at the rock, and the wheels were spinning. I was trying to figure it out, and then ding, she's trying to sell it to me, is what I came up with. I lifted my head to say, "Excuse me, madam, we're serious here in the bank," and she was already at the door. She had come into the bank specifically to hand me this crystal with that message. What she said was, this will help you with your addictions. Whoa. So from that moment, now amethyst, the only thing I knew about amethyst at the time was that it was my birthstone. And this was a honking big rock. Certainly wasn't any dainty jewelry. And it really did shake me a little bit to my boots. So I put it in the drawer that day, and then I kept taking it out, and I was drawn by it and afraid of it at the same time. And really, it wasn't overnight, but from that moment, there was as if some grace was spilled in. There was more thought, there was more slowing, there was stopping, and there was opening. So some doors that I had pretty much battened down the hatches on started to reopen thanks to that person. So people ask me if that was my if that wasn't my angel, an angelic presence taking form, because I really needed an intervention, I would say that it's somebody, Julia, like you or me, or like any of us, that have a channel that's clear enough to receive guidance and act on it. Even in front of a little tiny banker who's trying to be scary.
Mm-hmm.
So from that day, things started to shift, and again, this word softening. All of the barriers that I had built softened that day. And just thinking about it, it gets me, I'm a little verklempt, because it just was such a gift,
It's life.
and a life-saving gift.
Yeah. And your life starts to open up. You start to feel what your life is as opposed to having all those filters.
That's right. That's right. And so all of it softened, and I started being more productive at work, being more healthy, paying more attention to what my body needed. And I didn't necessarily make the link between the stone and the shifting behaviors. But once they started to shift even a little, the universe followed. And then I was offered a job working with French companies, and I always had that draw to France and away from New York. So I was taken out of the place where old habits were holding me back. And then everything opened up slowly once I left the States and came to France. And I always felt like I had something to do here. I took my sister's French book when I was 6 and started teaching myself French. So there was always a draw for me. But truly, this is why I talk about in the book, Discover Your Crystal Family, that if you have crystals around you already, they are part of your family and they're worth exploring and connecting with. Absolutely.
And so that
That's
you
the
say that
dramatic first story.
they also relate to our guardian angels.
One could compare crystals to angels in that angels are expression of source that are there to support us, and crystals are expression of earth
Mm-hmm.
there to support us. So the energies, the devas, the angels of the earth, the angels of fairies, if you will, are through matter expressing the same support and love and help that angels would bring us if we would have it. And that's both of them, if we would have it, because nothing happens if we're not seeking, opening, asking.
Mm-hmm. And that's always free will, whether we know it or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
And
Yeah, that
so,
free will is respected, even when we.
I'm hypothesizing, but I would think that the crystals and the earth bring in a certain amount of physical vitality, just as gardening does.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And what's interesting is that gardening will attract some people, and crystals will attract sometimes a complementary group, but that in some way the earth is attracting, is calling us all home.
Mm-hmm.
So of course it's nice to have the double whammy. I like crystals and plants, but I do find it's interesting that the physicality of this mothership calls to all of us in one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Whether it's hiking, whether it's gardening, whether it's having crystals. But
Swimming in the sea, yeah.
I think right now with all the changes, anything that we can get our hands on that helps is probably a great thing to do.
Absolutely the truth to act, and if we do it consciously, that's even better, but even unconsciously it's great, because if as human beings we turn towards the earth in some fashion, with respect, with joy, with fun, with spontaneity, with our attention, where our attention goes, so goes our energy. So these are not exploitative experiences, but rather experiences that reconnect ourselves with the earth, but through us, humanity with the earth. So in some ways where we can act as a real counterweight to some of the blindness of some of our brothers and sisters with regard to the planet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is a way too of helping the earth. And that's an important part of it too. And then you have she talks about these. I always wondered why I collected ghost crystals. Now I know. If you're wondering whether or not you should get her book, you should. It has these wonderful reasons of about why you should do it, what you can do with your crystals, how you can clear your crystals. It's like every question I've ever had, she somehow or other miraculously answers in her book.
I think that these were the questions that I had also at the beginning. And I think everybody starts by you're reading so much, and wonderful books that exist, but you can have 5 different books that are going to say 5 different things. So
Exactly.
yeah.
So
Really,
I just stopped reading because I just got more and more confused about it. And I thought I'll just buy the crystals that attract me.
and in the end, that's what my book says. Go buy the crystals that attract you, because our
Yeah.
family calls to us, and nobody is an expert for you more than you.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you don't feel like you have confidence, that is true. The truth of it becomes apparent once we try to move into those spaces.
And we can program the crystals, right, to help us.
Yeah, especially the clear quartz crystal, but absolutely. Our intention, we're the children of a creator, our intention creates. And boy, oh boy, can't wait for that to be taught in school, because it's coming. Okay.
And
But
I'll tell them real quickly about the computer. You know, everybody has computer problems, particularly on the days you're frustrated or things aren't going well, because our energy isn't always great. But you can get a crystal and ask it to help you with your computer, to make it go faster, to make things stay up, to keep it from crashing. And it really will do it. And if I'm going through a phase when it's just not working that day, I'll take the crystal and talk to it, put it back by the computer, and then send pink light or love to the computer. And then that just straightens it out. If it doesn't, turn it off and turn it on. It'll come up the right way usually.
yeah. No, it's so important, and especially as our energy fields are shifting, the more that we shift to, we have an impact that's greater on all the technology around us, the computers, the phones. And so this is a question that comes up pretty often. So I loved what you did with the smoky quartz, and absolutely, the choice is really one of intuition. But if ever, sometimes the confidence is not there yet in our own intuition. Another stone that's excellent for that is shungite. And my understanding is that it has emerged precisely to help us with these energies that are coming out of our technological advancement that has outstripped our human advancement.
Right. Which it certainly has done. Yes.
Yeah.
And that is something that we really, I mean, it can be used for good, obviously, just like what we're doing now, but a whole lot of energy that comes out of it is so negative.
It's true.
And information seeking, I should say.
And so tiring. You know, we were mentioning how 5 minutes in a garden and you just come away and Wonder Woman. It's so filling. And 5 minutes in front of the computer can be very tiring. I tend to get on, and I do videos when I'm inspired. At one point it was every day, and now it's once a week or so. It's just when I have something that's say worthy.
Right.
And then I'm off again, because it's there's such a mix of energy and a barrage.
Yeah.
And protecting our own energy is very, very important, whether we do it with crystals, whether we do it by going out into nature, whether we do it by singing, whether we do it by dancing. And each of us knows exactly what the soul needs, exactly what we personally need for this instrument that we're inhabiting in this life.
But there is an excellent chapter in your book on protection with crystals.
Yeah, it's a theme that comes up, and it has to be spoken about. We can't be here big girls talking about angels, and that's talking about one end of the spectrum. While we're here on earth, there is a whole spectrum. Of course, there's no place that God is not. There's no place that source is not. The life all life is an expression of source, but certainly there's a dichotomy. Certainly the duality exists, and our experience is not always pleasant. So the idea of protection is one that can be grown out of, if I might, that we can step into the larger aspects of ourselves and not be at the mercy of lower energies. Absolutely, we can change our energetic neighborhood. That's absolutely possible. But if we are tired, if we are run down, if we have not been taking care of ourselves, the possibility of that is almost nothing. So in those cases, certainly there are wonderful crystals to help us, and there are wonderful angels. We have an awful lot of help.
Yeah, but we have to tap into it. And I think I'm going to add that I know most intuitives have times when that negative energy hits you and you feel like you can't get off the sofa. It's flat. You don't have any exciting ideas. If you think about streaming a movie, it seems exciting. Those are all good symptoms of you need some protection.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. You can feel that sinking down. And I usually liken it to being tired. And if I'm tired, I don't go near humans until I pick myself up. And then I go do that right away. There's like how many things. And now I have a new way to do it with your question about what would be good for me and fun for me.
Yeah.
The human in me would find fun at this moment. And so therefore possible, because I hold some practice groups for my Reiki students. I work with a lot of different modalities that I find fun, interesting, and effective. And so often what I hear is, yeah, I didn't practice much, and I knew that I really needed it. And that's really what happens so often, is that the practice falls off when we most need it. And so finding a way that's fun, that's lively, that piques our curiosity and gets the child to emerge and show the adult how to pick herself up. Yeah, these are sacred spaces that are so rich. We're really in the thick of it now, aren't we?
Yes. I mean, we had about 15 years there where we just got all the good information. Now it's like, here's good, here's bad, here's good, here's bad. What are you going to do with it? And I know for me, like if I go out and the energy feels really bad, I'm like, okay, so which one store do I have to go to? We'll do that one. The rest can wait till the energy changes.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I'm glad I'm not the only one. I left, I had a very long list of things to do today. There's nobody here. So often there's somebody here at the Haven. And today there's nobody. So I had a list the length of my arm. And well, I got up to halfway to the elbow.
But that's
okay, that's enough
okay.
for today. That's enough for today.
Yeah, it's changing itself. It's almost as though there's only so much we can do per day. It's given to us.
Ooh,
Then I guess yeah. Because I'll hear like, no, you don't need to do that today. And I'll be like, but I have to return that package. I'm like, it'll go like, no, you've got 2 more days. Leave it alone.
Yeah. And then to listen to that and allow a different rhythm to take us. There's some quote from the Bible, and I'm sorry, it's coming back, but it's coming back just I'll paraphrase. And um, uh, today's task is your only nourishment. Yesterday's is not for you. The future is not for you. Just today. I don't give you more than one day to carry. And
it's really becoming
that.
that way. Yeah, that's what it's becoming. I've noticed that it's like the time-space continuum is changing.
It feels that way. And then short and long almost have no meaning,
It's like one day I'll think it's so long. I'll think this must be like 2 days. It's just never going to end. And then I'll have another day and I'll go, it can't be 2 o'clock. It can't be.
Exactly. Or there'll be a week-long workshop here, and at the end, people are like, "How did that go by so fast?" And yet, it was so long at moments. There was so much going on in this. Yeah, it's
because
a very
time is just
interesting
something we've made up.
And I think we're being shown that.
Yeah.
More and more.
Yeah, that it's more of our experience.
It's a great time to be alive. I think seeing the clock with the repeating numbers and all of it's kind of like wink, wink, nudge,
I
nudge.
know.
Remember, this is a game.
I know. Remember, it's a game and don't get lost in it. That's the other part of it that's pretty hard, I think.
Yeah. It's interesting, I think, to me that there are in movies like Avatar and video games where more and more there's a whole generation that are very clear that they play a game and the avatar is the one that's going into battle. And I don't think it's an accident. I think that's very, I mean, it's just a beautiful metaphor for the soul and the form that we've taken on in this lifetime. And so the game isn't always pretty,
No.
but it's always a game.
No, and I do think because there's a lot of criticism of that generation, I'm going to point out that they are not that interested in being out with everyone and doing a whole lot. They're
And
more interested in making their inner world work for them.
and isn't that really what it's all about? But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, thank goodness the souls that are arriving have arrived, are ready to create and ready to live in the world that just hasn't arrived yet. It's just on the other side of this bridge. We're on this bridge. There's a lot of resistance, but we're moving out of fear and into love. And definitely crystals and angels and
Oh,
Mother Earth.
yeah. And let me add, she has a list of crystals you can begin with. I think it's 15 stones that people who are not familiar can go ahead and get started with. And she tells you how to clean your crystals, how to program your crystals, and how to balance your life with crystals, which is just so important. But I did want to make a comment about the bridge because in class I was saying everyone thinks we're just going to wake up in the new world. It's as we change our thoughts, our feelings, and our spirituality. But I was in a really crowded restaurant and there was this wonderful hostess, and through her expression, she had everyone doing whatever she wanted, even though it was so loud you couldn't hear anything. And I complimented her on it, and she said, "Oh, you don't know." She said, "The second I go home, I do yoga and meditation." And I said, "I do that too." And for a second, we went into like that absolute stillness that you get with yoga and meditation. And I thought, it's not going to be that hard to cross the bridge. It's going to be staying in that place.
Mhm. I absolutely feel like this is going to be um, that it's going to happen. I don't have any doubt that it's possible that this be fluid and peaceful, and with great gratitude to those souls, that those generations that so often get they're getting kicked on, but they're just more advanced
They
in
are.
a sense. It's not to say anybody's better than anybody else, but they're already slowing. They're already jumping off the rat race. They're already moving back to nature and connecting with love and gentle. They're already not judging differences. They're already moving out of duality and gender separation. I mean, it's all happening before our eyes, and I'm rather amazed and just in awe of it.
Yeah, there's some just amazing children on the planet right now. Well, we've reached the end. So tell them again where they can find you.
So Kathryn Hudson, Kathryn, Hudson like the river.fr is my website. I am on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. And if you want to reach out, contact at kathrynhudson.fr. Shoot me an email. And thank you so much, beautiful soul
It
like
was
you are.
so
Thank you so much.
wonderful.
It's always such a pleasure.
Feel like I sit in the light when you're here. Thank you. So, you guys, if you want to find me, I'm on onetrueself.com, onetrueself.com. You could probably sign up for both of our newsletters and get a lot of information. You can email me at onetrueself@gmail.com. And I want to thank you all for tuning into the Power of Inspiration and Awakening. We'll be back in a couple weeks. Namaste. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Inspiration and Awakening Radio with Julia Griffin to master a higher frequency for a new state of mind. Join us next time as Julia takes us deeper into the memory of the moments of light where transcendence and enlightenment emerge. The memory of the jewel of consciousness is always lived within you to tap into waves of energy and create huge changes by imagining the beauty of the vision and desires that are hidden in the heart. Learn to find your way back to nature, beauty, and your own heart, which holds the secrets of your existence and future. To discover more about Julia's adventures, animal communication, and the teachings she brings to every show, visit onetrueself.com. That's onetrueself.com. That's ONE, trueself.com.